Hi, everybody. Kyle and I are going to be talking about nutrition and movement to fix knee pain and improve mobility today. So maybe, Kyle, you could just start by talking about what you do, and then I could share a little bit more about what I do.
Sure thing. Okay, hey guys. So I have been assisting truck drivers in Australia. Um, Bit of the backstory was that I jumped off my truck a couple of years ago, and like I've been reasonably nimble and fine for a good portion of my life, and I'm still a little bit young, but it's like what happened was I injured my knee and I couldn't bend my knee after that fact. But fortunately, I knew about a body of work on the internet that you guys might have heard of by Ben Patrick. Um, and he was basically showing people how to repair their knees. And what happened there was like, just it dawned on me, oh, I should just revise that. And I went back and in a really, really short period of time, I felt it pretty much instantly as like that this is going to be the path for me, more likely to repair the situation. Because at the time, I was like, uh-oh, you know, like I had to be moving construction materials around Sydney by myself, operating a small truck. Multiple building sites were relying on me to be there at crack of dawn at times, and so I was just lucky that I knew about this stuff. But it wasn't until I was already involved in in coaching a coaching platform that I realized that that was my most valuable information. And it's not mine; like I've totally just copied and pasted from someone. But what I've been providing is just online assistance for people, whether it's the free videos that you can still see on my Facebook page, like just literally, because some folks might be out in the boondocks by themselves with a bung knee, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it can be a little bit, well, it can be quite frightening and potentially very worrisome. So I've just been really working on creating that platform more succinctly and making it so that more people come across it, but ultimately that it's actually that I'm actually helping people. So um, just by using a couple of really simple methods, and providing that sort of that that assistance, so that if they go, hey, I'm getting this feeling like some tightness, some folks, they can't really expect to all of a sudden have amazing results if they haven't exercised for a good portion of their life, Kaylee. And that is the opportunity for me to really sort of help them out through that because I taught yoga
Mhm.
4 years, so um, that that's sort of been that's like my backbone to sort of really help these folks through it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Um, You guys watching don't know me already. My name's Kaylee. I'm a gut health and nutrition coach. So, what I do is I help people to heal their chronic gut issues at the root. And I use principles that are very natural, like ancestral nutrition, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I just help people to understand how their bodies work, their digestive system works, their gut works. And by understanding the physiology of your body, and how things work, you can understand what gets off and how to correct it and how to bring everything back into balance so that it will function well again. And when you do that, when you eat nourishing foods your body was meant to, when you support your body with just all the things that it's meant to have, enough sleep and enough exercise, all of that kind of stuff, you will function so much better. You'll feel better. You won't have all those symptoms. And I was actually really interested to talk with Kyle about this because I've had knee pain issues, it's a very common thing. And when I first had knee pain issues, I went towards the side of things I know and I dove into the nutrition for recovery. I remember having a page in my nutrition journal all about nutrients to heal your knee and joints and what kind of foods to eat. So we'll definitely get into this topic as well. So normally I help people that have chronic gut issues, things like IBS or IBD, so Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, autoimmune diseases, leaky gut, all sorts of things like that. I myself had really bad IBS and chronic constipation, bloating, and abdominal pain for a long time. So it was my own journey in learning how to heal my gut issues that led me to want to help other people. I figured out so many things that I wish I knew when I started, and I love being able to help people and give them all that knowledge I wish that I had when I started. So anyway, I typically work with people to heal their guts, but this ties into your joint pain too. Your gut is connected to everything. It's connected to your joints, it's connected to your brain, to your hormones, to so much beyond just your digestive tract. Yeah, so we'll get into how your gut impacts your joints and how healing your gut can actually be one thing that can help with that, and how nutrition plays a role. And then, yeah, I'm excited to hear more about Kyle's approach and the actual movements that you need to do to heal, because clearly that's a extraordinarily important aspect of healing your joints.
Thank you, Kaylee. Yeah, that's yeah, shit. I reckon you really hit it on the head. That we are what we eat. It's an area that I've sometimes tiptoed around with some folks. Because it's a bit sensitive. I'd like to highlight that we should all be doing our best, but also that we shouldn't be. We sort of have to navigate that line. Are we being neurotic? Are we actually? Because look, so many of us don't have immediate access to such great nutrition. Like the wonderful Kaylee here is just showing, you're just showing some really awesome stuff, the foundational things that our forefathers um, would have, presumably had like historical, like ancestral access to. It's at varying degrees, and I think whether you lived back then or you live now, it's a consideration that if we become educated in it, that we have more of the tools at our disposal. So, if we choose to just eat some bread as we're running out the door with a banana, then you've got to do sometimes, but it's just a valuable thing to have if we have some space in our day to learn some of these things to what's really ringing true to us.
Mhm.
I think is something that can be valuable with just additional information that we might not have known as well.
Yeah, an interesting thing that came to mind when you mentioned that too, like if you have a day where you just grab some bread out on the morning, what I like to, suggest to people for that is to, use that opportunity to go, okay, well, how did I feel today when I did that? Like, was it really worth it? And to brainstorm all the things that you can do, because eating healthy, while it does take some work, I'm not going to lie and say it's as easy as junk food or anything like that, but
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be crazy. I know plenty of people, I've worked with plenty of people that keep it really simple. I worked with one guy that he worked like 13-hour days, 5 days a week, worked out 5 days a week, and had a long commute to work. And he was like, I don't have time to cook. I don't care if it's fancy. I just want good food that'll help me heal my gut issues, fuel my training, give me energy. And he ate a bunch of ground beef and rice, but he healed, he kicked the junk food, he kept it super simple, would, make meals at once, and it worked for him. So something I wanted to add on that, to that practical application of the things that we're learning about, is finding habits that work for you. Everyone's so different. I don't have any clients that eat the exact same. Everybody is radically different. I work with, moms that love to make extravagant meals and everything homemade for their families. And I work with guys that work long hours and want something quick and they don't care how simple it is. So finding things that work for you. And the other thing I'd add there is it gets easier too. Like it can feel like a huge burden at first. Like I'm going to have to prep my own breakfast before I leave in the morning. But it can be something so simple that you get in the habit of making some hard boiled eggs and sausage the night before, or something really simple you can bring out the door in the morning. So, yeah.
That's a terrific one, guys. Like, isn't it? Because the hard-boiled egg is so simple and it satiates,
Hmm.
right? Like, and you can crack that while you're driving down the highway. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm like averse to littering, but I don't feel so bad about eggshells. Um, yeah, that's a great one. Um, and yeah, it certainly is something that one can improve upon. And uh, like, if we surround ourselves with better options, then it's much easier to stick with them.
Hmm.
Hey, wouldn't you say, Kaylee?
Absolutely. Yeah. And a huge thing that I find helpful, I'm a very meticulous, organized person, and everybody operates a little differently. So this is going to work for other structured people. So it might not work so well if you're not a
Oh,
very structured
oh
person.
man.
What I like to do is plan out all my meals for the entire week and then write my grocery list with those meals and then go buy the groceries, come back, and I have all my meals planned for the whole week. And it just makes things so easy for me because I don't have to think about it. So Tuesday is my write down my meals for the weekday. And today, even as I'm cooking in the kitchen and noticing I have extra pesto. I make a note. I should make something with pesto. I still have some peaches and peach salad and steak ingredients left. So I'm going to have that again next week. So I'll kind of just jot things down in my journal as I'm thinking of it. And now I already have a few meals planned for this coming week. So tomorrow, when I go open my journal to write all my meals, I already have some things there. I don't have to think about it all from scratch. And then I'll fill in the blanks, get my groceries on Wednesday morning, and then I just have all the food there. I have all the meals planned. And for me, that makes it so I don't have to think during the day. Well, what am I going to eat today? What am I going to make for dinner? Get done with work and be tired or whatnot and go, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? Do I even have the ingredients? So for me, it takes a huge pressure off and it makes it a lot easier. I usually only have to go to the grocery store once a week. It just, that kind of structure makes it easy. And what made me think of that was what you were saying is that the not having the bad options around, like just having your food full of groceries and not just full of groceries, because I heard plenty of people say they buy a bunch of veggies and then they rot because they didn't do anything with them. So having the groceries and then having the plan, and it doesn't have to be crazy. It can be. I love making fancy meals that take hours. I absolutely do. But it can also be simple because sometimes I make steak and caprese salad, which is so quick. It's so quick and it's so good and it's so healthy. So, yeah, you got to find what works for you.
Okay, I think I need to help here because Kaylee, I am the exact opposite, and I can. Here's the thing, like, um, for blokes out there, guys out there, or like girls out there who just want to get hit the ground running, and as awesome as all of your things are, like I can the catchphrase for me is like I'm a barbarian. I'll just pick up the good thing and eat it. Because you know what? Like eating a piece of steak, eating a piece of celery, like just like with your freaking hands. And it sounds ridiculous, but
Yeah.
okay, you can use a knife and fork, whatever. But like, let's be real. A lot of us, and bless you, Kaylee, for all these awesome ideas. And there's just so many of us I feel who are like hitting the ground running, looking after kids, doing this and that, and like that whole surrounding yourself with good options is awesome. And like, I just find myself kind of regularly eating just hodgepodge of good stuff.
Yeah.
Just it doesn't have the glaze and it doesn't have the crackling and all of the above. It's just like what I've been doing at times is just I've got to just outline this barbarian approach for the folks out there. Is like having my thing of sauerkraut. I'll have a bit of meat or something like that because those two um, seem to be symbiotic in nature and then just trying to articulate a meal through eating natural stuff can at times be surprisingly good. Like it can be like a case of, oh man, this doesn't look like dinner because I'm eating, um, let's just say something different, like so oats and bananas or something. But for during the day, I've just been snacking on chicken and sipping on bone broth or whatever it is to really kind of facilitate just natural food. But in the process of eating that natural food, because it's real and it's not, so processed, I feel like the body gets satiated quick, and we receive those benefits and things like that,
Mhm.
um, just from from doing the best we can sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great approach too. Just that's why I prefaced mine with I'm very structured and this might not work for everyone because I have plenty of friends and family that do it totally different and they just have their healthy foods they like to get. They like to get yogurts and steaks and veggies and whatnot. And then what they prefer to do is go, what do we have in the fridge? This is what we're going to make out of it for dinner. So it's just important you find a way that works for you. It doesn't have to be my way. It doesn't have to be Kyle's way, but whatever way works for you that you can be consistent at that feels easy to you or feels doable. Let's shift into the healing your knees and mobility a little more. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your approach? I know you were telling me you have like a pain free approach and you focus on alignment and correct form and consistency. You want to tell me more about your approach?
Absolutely. Um, what's interesting about the approach that I learned from Ben Patrick and the approach that I share is on my page, up top of my Facebook page, etc. Um, is that it is actually very relatable to many of the different disciplines associated with balanced exercise. For instance, yoga, like how the traditional yoga was really much more based and is for me fundamentally based on a breath and movement practice and not necessarily a fancy pants gymnastics practice,
Mhm.
which a lot of the yoga you might see has kind of become because it's almost as though the students have asked of it. That if there's so many areas to our life to pursue that at times you'll know this as well, you guys out there, that once you start to focus on an area of your life, you just keep going at it sometimes. It's like I know I'm being Mr. Fitness now. I'm just going to keep stacking on this thing, absent the realization that there's all these other areas of life. So what the yoga and the approach to pain-free, um, restorative movement practices really advocates is um, outside of an awareness of there being more areas of life to focus on and to keep it simple. But when we're looking at a restorative practice and everything, it really has to be from a pain-free approach, including things like nutrition, including things like being hydrated and well slept, because it's the combination of these. And don't get me wrong, I get crap sleep sometimes. I mean, for different reasons, we don't always meet the prerequisites of hey, I'm feeling great today. But having an awareness of what these things are um, really assists. Um, and like you mentioned, um, alignment is a very important factor in ensuring we approach movement practices with form in such a way that it doesn't become injurious. Um, and we can, yeah, that's that's pretty much that in a nutshell, really. Um, because it really enables the body to over time improve. We can't go running into things and uh, outstanding results, especially when we're looking at something that's a restorative practice that I'll just share has been so awesome. That the particular methods that I share on my page that I got from Ben Patrick, otherwise known as knees over toes guy, you might have heard of him, really facilitates the improvement of the joints in the knee, the connective tissue related to the knee, the muscles, how they can be stuck together, and it really begins to retrain the relationship between independent muscles. So just quick, you might be aware that each muscle, I believe, each muscle is individually wrapped by fascia. So it's individually wrapped, and at times, if we don't move those muscles independently of each other, they can begin to get stuck together. Like for instance, when you go for a drive and you go and get out of the car, and it might take you, X amount of time before you kind of feel human again. You can start walking around your house. Having the correct alignment and the correct method in concert with nutrition and all of the above has guys, some of you might realize, you go, hey, if I do the right thing, it's going to make my knee feel better. But there is a body of discipline that we've been taught to buy into, which is fine. If I got hit by a car, I want to go to the doctor. I want an ambulance to pick me up. But if we've got a degraded condition, whether it's arthritic and things are along those lines, oftentimes also, strains and pulls. These things can be supported, and when we follow those alignment principles and even weight distribution, for instance, that it allows a, a proper relationship between the 2 feet on the ground. And when we are practicing something at a low weight, for instance, just using light body weight, I show folks quite easily, I'll tell you right now, is that if you lift your front foot and put it on a chair, you actually take a lot of the weight out of that front foot. And when you go then to bend into that knee, you're not taking your whole body weight down to the ground. You're just kind of doing a bit of a bendy bit on the chair. And that like takes all of the weight out of it and allows a person, if they're correctly aligned by having their feet hip width apart and the weight evenly between front and back foot, you can even hold on to the chair. Just like bending into that front knee, it facilitates the very bend that's going to lead to the more effective bend of that knee. Um, Outside of the also amazing restorative practice of walking backwards.
Oh, I've heard about that.
You guys, um, some of you guys might even know about it now. Ben Patrick, a knees over toes guy, he's probably got 1 million subscribers at this point based on his social media following and other markers on the internet. He's been spoken about in numerous places. It's not rocket science, and he's, said, and walking backwards has an amazing ability to improve underlying conditions in the neck, like arthritis of the neck, which we've been. So I did segue a little bit there, is that discipline that we've been taught to rely on is going to a doctor, going to a surgeon, and I'm not knocking some of that, but if you don't have a alignment focused supplemental practice, then you're relying on someone to cut you open to fix the thing so it works instead of doing the things that you want it to be able to do to work at a very pain-free threshold with a very easeful approach that allows us to gradually build that viscosity up in the joints, the lubrication of the joints, improve that relationship between muscle systems, and improve, indeed, you would understand this, Caleb, the nutrients going to the places they want to go are like, that's because you can put all that stuff in. But if we're not moving, that's why, it's so great that you show people also that you are physically active, whether it's just walking, going backpacking. It doesn't have to be, does it? It doesn't have to be some fancy yoga routine. But if we know some of the foundational movements to improve knee health, and I'm just saying that, it can be really beneficial as we age.
Something you mentioned that I see a parallel with in my field is the going to the doctor, like getting a surgery when that wasn't appropriate. If you were to have just done the movement patterns and whatnot, you would heal and learn to move your body in the correct form. But if you go and get the surgery or the quick fix, you didn't fix the root cause. So I'd imagine people get prone to just getting the same issue again. Do you find that?
You don't immediately fix it by going to that surgeon if you're not addressing it.
Hmm.
Right? So you might have not done a bad thing necessarily as well, because I don't want to be attacking the medical establishment for a few reasons. But one reason might be that in some cases, surgery might be a good idea for something.
Yeah.
Putting a ligament together. Like I said, my brother's an ambulance officer, and big ups to my dad who set the tone on being ambulance, helping people. It's that if you get hit by a car, you want someone to put you back together.
Mhm.
And if you have an impact, but it is worth mentioning that if sometimes we have a strain or a pull or even the damaging of meniscus, I'm giving some examples here.
Yeah.
After multiple surgeries, Ben Patrick ended up discovering these protocols because of the availability of information these days. And in combination with a strength first approach, so understanding where strength comes from. It does not come from running into a large weight and then going for it and then walking away. Hey, now I'm strong. Or what it really consists of is consistency. It's just about being consistent and applying, and then once every now and then going for gold, if you like, you know. And everyone is different, and everyone is a different age, and has a different story. So those are some useful distinctions when it comes to improving um, strength generally, um, and mobility are positive as well.
So if someone had pain, what would your first kind of bullet point advice be as far as those movements? Would they be specific kind of exercises they would do, or is it more about you go down to squat to pick this up? Here's a few tips to make sure you're doing it the right way. Like, what does that look like a little more specifically for someone that has knee pain and correcting it?
Awesome. I'm gonna give you a demonstration right now because
Okay.
I'm that brave. I'm just like, what are we doing here? Let's show these folks. And bear with me because you know what? This is all just a learning curve for everyone, and we really would need some demonstration. So, to improve the bendability of the knee, we need to practice having that knee bent. And like I was just saying, this is a weekend chair, and if you guys can see this, and I apologize for the but I'm using Wi-Fi and the sticks. So once this front foot is elevated, you've taken a lot of the weight out, and this is the foundation way to. If you've got a poor, you're just feeling tight. It's no big deal. You might be feeling tight one day relative to the next. You can really start with this foot a heck of a lot higher to get a really nice, actually good feeling as we feed into the neck. Because at times, if we haven't got that correct alignment, then it becomes interest. You just feel a ping, the meniscus, whatever it is, for you. And you might feel a tightness in a given area. But once we follow the correct form of having the hips square to the front and having our feet sort of apart, generally speaking, it allows us to move into the bed in such a way that doesn't cause any discomfort. Because if I try to skew my back foot, not intentional, because we can be accidental. Every day I go and do this, I'm like, oh, my back foot's not in the right place. So, hey, you know, um, once we're in that correct form, all the bones and ligaments are working well together. And I mean, if we practice that movement consistently over time, it allows that viscosity to gradually move back to the neck. Um, and because our front foot's elevated, it takes the difficulty out of that, which means we can focus on higher repetitions and less intensity of movement. So that actually facilitates that gradual healing, that improvement over time. So this is the knee that, I mean, it's been 2 years, so you might go, oh, well, that's anti-climate. But this knee was written off, and it was feeling much better in a short period of time. And it really, over time, can improve the amount of nutrients running to that knee situation. You know what I mean? And that has a measurable improvement on that integrity of those connective tissues, which is outstanding. So I've just shown you guys how you can improve your knee ability. So the ability of the knee to bend. And all you would like or you would like to know if you're willing to improve is that if you wanted to improve the condition and as far, generally speaking, walking backwards is a really great foundational exercise for like knee arthritis. At first, I've been hesitating in using the word knee arthritis because it's like, don't touch that, son. Like we're talking about old people, be gentle. And the whole medical system is predicated on anti-inflammatory drugs. And thank the Christs that you're here, my dear, because, like it's that, speaking back to that gut health positive aspect of really getting, all the great things back to the joint, walking backwards. It works the opposing muscle systems that we are using when we're moving forward. And we're always moving forward. Acts within the knee joint take place in the exact same portion of the knee that is impacted upon moving forward, whether it's football, golf, walking downstairs. So what happens here is once we start walking directly backwards, you can use the treadmill with it turned off. That's an awesome place, but I want to keep it simple as well, guys. I'm trying to talk slowly. I get very excited. Is that you can hold on to the side of the guardrail. If you're a truck driver, you can hold on to your truck. Just for safety, because walking backwards is obviously has its precarious. If you're in the hallway at home, you can just hold on to the wall. And it feels a little scary at first, but we really do get much better at it, I assure you. And once we've begun to work those opposing muscle system, it's very similar to other exercise you'll find at the gym, where people deliberately attempt to work those opposing muscle systems. But not only does it have that positive benefit, it's a gentle exercise that you can pursue without a huge, taxing undertaking. Right? So in doing so, it gradually facilitates that progression of back of the leg improvement, improves that viscosity towards the forward of the joint. So so just to say that again, is that when we're moving forward, we're always using a certain portion of the joint. But when we're moving backwards, it is actually creating a space in the knee. There was a Time news article recently, walking backwards, the great exercise that you're not doing. Like, if we walk backwards, it facilitates, especially if we have adequate nutrition and hydration, that viscosity and lubrication back into the knee. And as a great lower leg exercise, where this really helps, and it's been measured, is moving downhill. Mm-hmm. Now, when we're getting older, which will happen to most of us, it's often the case that walking downstairs, running downhill if you're an athlete or a soldier, whatever, running downhill has a deleterious impact on our knee joint and our experience. Many of you know that. Oddly though, isn't it? I mean, if you told me, Kaylee, I'm going for a walk up that hill over there, I'll be like, you're walking up that hill? Why don't you just walk down it?
I know.
You know?
I've when I push and do a really big hike, like that, like 2, 3,000 feet elevation gain, like 6, 8 miles, a hard hike. Yeah, that downhill, I can feel like the knee tendons burn. Just from that pain sometimes of walking downhill if it's been like a really long.
Mm. I do. I do wonder if that can also be the case that when we're walking in one direction uphill, it is just different to walking downhill. So all of a sudden we're using different muscle systems.
Oh yeah.
Just because I don't want to be evangelical about my idea here, but what I'm trying to articulate is that when we're moving downhill, we're moving with gravity, and we're not. Yeah, it's just indeed the case that when we walk backwards, it really assists with walking downhill,
Hmm.
uh,
So,
etc.
are you saying to walk backwards downhill, or just walking backwards in general will help you with the walking downhill?
So, in order to restore the underlying conditions of the knee, walking backwards in general.
Okay, okay.
Um, and if we wanted, yes, if we wanted then to add a little bit more resistance, what we can do is walk uphill, walk faster backwards, safely, y'all. But essentially, if you were going to use a treadmill, you can even train the treadmill to be on more of a tilt,
Mhm.
which adds resistance as you walk backwards. It's like you're walking uphill. So walking uphill backwards, holding onto a rail, something if you like. We're just walking in the middle of the road. Don't tell people that, Kyle. It just I live in very quiet places at times in my life, but it's a really excellent idea that I'm glad I get to share. It's,
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd heard about that before, but I didn't break it down to you're going to be using those other sides, the muscle or different parts of the tendons, ligaments, muscles, or whatever, using the parts you don't normally use by going backwards. So that's really interesting that that's why it helps so much.
it's great that you heard about it. And just I've bumped into many people at the gyms who are walking backwards on the treadmill,
Oh no.
and I just know what they're up to straight away, and I just want to go talk to them. I'm like, did you get it from here? This place, this guy? And they're like, and
Oh,
I ended up helping one of them and talking to them about it and stuff. But
yeah.
it's definitely a bunch more common now. You can see how it's explained in simple, short detail on the page. Um, and yeah, I also assist folks with um, online assistance, whether it's actually looking at their form as well. Um, it's a little bit of a personal plug here, Kaylee, but you know, once we start doing things like this, some of us might wish to get further assistance, with additional stretches that we can do to turbocharge our results, and additional movements that we can do to probably take us to a place that we never thought we would ever be. Um, yeah, that can all be found on my page. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, maybe I could tie into the inflammation bit a little bit you mentioned earlier. Does that sound good?
Oh, carry on. Yeah, lead the way.
Okay. You mentioned inflammation, and that ties so heavily into both gut health and nutrition. So that's kind of a huge part of how your nutrition and gut health can contribute to healing knee injuries, really any joint injuries, or yeah, any kind of injury like that. But anyway, so inflammation, people typically think inflammation bad, but there's actually two different types of inflammation. So we have acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. Acute inflammation is good, it's in the short term. Acute inflammation is you
Oh, I
get
see.
cut and your body has an inflammatory response and it brings a lot of blood to that area. So you get a lot of nutrients to help repair the cut. You get the ability to, you know, dry up the blood and create a scab. And you also have a lot of blood not just flowing to it, but flowing away. So you get a lot of waste able to be moved away from the injury easily. So any kind of
Yeah.
injury, the initial inflammation of a few hours, maybe a day, is actually helping you to heal. It's your body bringing nutrients through blood and bringing waste away through blood. But most inflammation is chronic inflammation, and that is quite different. This is when the inflammatory response continues well past that. And the main cause of chronic inflammation is going to be leaky gut. And if you're not familiar with leaky gut, essentially your intestinal lining is one cell layer thick. So there's just one line of all these little cells that's lining your gut. And these cells are supposed to be very tight together. You can picture a brand new fence where every single board is pristine and perfectly next to each other. You can't peek through on your neighbors and they can't peek through on you. It's a very nice fence. That is how your intestines are supposed to be. But
That is.
when you have leaky gut, it would be like a very old fence where a board rotted away and just fell off in one part, or different, the gaps between the boards have just been worn away by weather and rot and whatnot. So there's now gaps, and you can actually look through and see your neighbors, and they might be able to look through and see you. And it feels like this is not a very good quality fence anymore. So leaky gut is similar in the sense that your cells are no longer tightly next to each other. There are now gaps. There's a number of things that can cause this. Primarily, gluten is going to be a huge one. Glyphosate, which is also called Roundup, it's a weed killer that's very commonly sprayed. Lectins, which is an anti-nutrient compound that's found in grains and nuts and seeds and legumes and some other foods too, like nightshades like tomatoes and dairy from A1 cows. So there's a few other foods that have lectins in them as well. I'm not saying all those are terrible and you can never have them, but it's one contributor. So pretty much you're going to have like gluten, glyphosate, lectins, stress. A poor gut microbiome can create toxins that can also negatively impact your gut lining. So all of those are going to be the main things, also environmental toxins that can make your gut leaky. So when it's leaky, essentially there's a protein in your body called zonulin that gets triggered. Gluten, glyphosate, and lectins directly trigger this. And zonulin causes those gaps to form. So that is when you start to get those gaps between the cells. Now it's only one cell layer thick, so that essentially means a free passage from your yard to your neighbor's yard, or your digestive tract to your bloodstream. So now you have things that weren't supposed to get in your bloodstream getting into your bloodstream. So this could be toxins that we're exposed to if you walk down the street and some car has big exhaust coming out of it and you breathe some of that in. That could contribute. It could be a little pesticides that was on your food, or it could be a lot of different things. But anyway, any kind of environmental toxins that you end up ingesting normally will get pulled out through your stools, and your body has this whole method of dealing with that. However, when you have leaky gut, the toxins can actually seep through in that little hole between the cells. Now, normally, when your gut lining is healthy and tight, your food has to be broken down into very, very small units. So proteins have to be broken down into individual amino acids. It can't be two amino acids still bound together. They have to be a single amino acid to be able to cross through a cell and into your bloodstream. There's all these specific little channels to get glucose molecules and fatty acids and amino acids and vitamins and minerals into your bloodstream. But if they are not broken down to the smallest unit, they can't make it through. So that is why digesting your food fully is important for actually absorbing nutrients. But when you have leaky gut, this no longer is the case because there's that huge gap. So that allows for not only toxins to get in, but it allows for chunks of food that are not digested fully. Now, by a chunk of food, this could literally be a glucose and a galactose molecule still stuck together that didn't get bound. Now, that is lactose, which is very common in dairy and can be hard to cleave for some people. But essentially, you can get a chunk of not quite fully digested food entering into your bloodstream. Now, when this happens, your body mounts an immune response, which is inflammatory. Now, it does this because this is a foreign object in your blood that's not supposed to be there. It's used to amino acids, glucose, galactose, a fatty acid, something simple that then gets built back together again once it's in your bloodstream or in your body.
Right.
But if
Yeah.
you have a little tiny itty bitty chunk of milk or a little tiny chunk of bread or a little tiny chunk of meat, that's not supposed to be there. So that's why your body mounts this immune response. And if you don't seal and heal leaky gut, this will happen over and over and over again, and you will get chronic inflammation. Now, this is the main root cause of inflammation. Why? And that is why it is so important to heal and seal that leaky gut. So if you do have leaky gut, a few quick tips on that. Cut out gluten. I know it can be hard. It is worth it. You will be able to eat it again in the future, but that's very important for healing. If you can cut out all grains, that would be ideal. At the very least, limit them and properly prepare them, sprout them, soak them, ferment them to decrease the lectins and other anti-nutrients that are in them. Also, you want to get tons of collagen and the amino acid glycine. Glycine is very prominent in collagen. So basically get a lot of bone broth and eat a lot of connective tissues. Now, this is also going to tie into healing your joints because there's a principle in ancestral nutrition that's called like heals like, which means the part of the animal that you eat is good for that corresponding part in you. So if you
I've heard that, and it does. I, you know, I can see how it would make sense if all was going relatively well in the of the absorption side of things.
exactly. So
If
if you
we don't,
So if you eat liver, it's good for your liver. If you eat heart, it's good for your heart. If you eat muscles, it's good for your muscles. And if you eat connective tissue, it's good for your connective tissue. So bone broth is typically the easiest way to get a lot, but it's not the only way. If you get a really good quality pork crackling, that is another way. You can do bone-in skin on poultry. You can do the skin on fish, so like salmon, eating the skin. You can do tough cuts of meat cooked slowly. So, like a brisket would be higher in collagen. Oxtail is very high in collagen. You can also get marrow bones and roast them and eat the marrow.
uh, that does make a lot of sense. And I sure hope that we're right in that. It's just it would make sense that if I wanted to get protein into my body to create, the proteins of my body that I would need to consume protein, um, it would make some degree of sense there. That, the trans, if there's the right word, transmutation. I'm just pulling words from the ether here of our own physical, growth would come from similar, oftentimes similar things to what it is we're wanting to improve upon.
Yeah, there's two
Mm.
main reasons for this like heals like principle. So one is the nutrients in connective tissue are the exact same nutrients you need for your connective tissue. Like I mentioned, glycine is an amino acid that is very, very high in collagen. You need a lot of glycine to make your collagen, to make your connective tissue. Your
Okay.
liver is so nutrient rich. It's got tons of B vitamins, it's got iron, it's got copper, it's got zinc, it's got a million things in it. And your liver needs a ton of nutrients. It needs the exact same ones to go through phase one, phase two detoxification and go through all the different functions that your liver has. So, not only is the tissue you eat also going to give you the exact nutrients you need for that tissue, but I haven't looked into them specifically, but I've heard that there are studies that say the nutrients you eat from a heart or from a liver will actually go directly to your liver. So I have not looked into this in depth. I saw it on one of the
I
organ
appreciate, I'm
websites.
sure everyone really appreciates that your honesty there. It does make a, but I would support you in that, is that it does make some sense.
Mhm.
You know, I have experience, and just for anyone who hasn't done a great deal of the sorts of things that Kaylee does, is that I do consume meat, and there's been times you can say, this is psychosomatic, or just of because you believe in what you are doing, so you feel better. But I've eaten liver, and much disgust of some of my family members or something. Oh, yeah, that's good for you. That's what they ate back in the day. Why did they do it back in the day? And what are the Chinese, who I hold a lot of high regard for in regards to not losing some of their learned distinctions from over thousands and thousands of years, is that why would you value the organ meats? Well, why? Because that's offal. You throw that in the pit. You eat the meat. Is that right? Well, I've eaten liver and felt as though my eyes worked better. Like I had, you know, uh, very, very real difference in how I felt. And, uh, you know, um, making those things bioavailable by consuming them with things like butter or oily things, just as an adjunct to what you're saying. Um, and having other things in alignment, consuming vegetables at other times, fruit at other times, or something. I don't know, whatever it is you're advocating 100%. Um, Supporting getting all the different bulks of things into our body. Uh, be more likely to get us in the right place, don't we think?
Mhm. Yeah, to touch, well, real quick, you said liver made your eyes feel better, is that right?
Um, yeah, it was a very literal experience of my brain being on. So I just translated that to my eyes. I get a very visceral, positive response. I'm going to share this from drinking green drinks. Um, Sort of a bit of a informed by my coaching background, which seems to be permeated. Not only that background, but many very popular social podcasts. In order to promote their podcast, they will sell things that they believe work for them, whether it's a pillow that stops them from snoring or some sort of silly, I don't, whatever. But green drinks, generally speaking, say like a wheat barley grass, all these different grasses and algae like spirulina would have been a part of our diet if we were still 100,000 years ago. 150 years ago, having drunken, not always filtered, fluoridated, fill in the blank, we would have been consuming things at times which had some degree of grasses. I mean, you know, having greens around us when we were starving. We haven't got meat all the time, folks. Yeah, we would have been hunter gatherers, and at times we would have found leaves that would have been more bioavailable, and we would have made that a part of our, consistent regimen because it was something that didn't make us ill. So having some greens in there has had that effect for me optically. Optically,
Mhm. I think that segue is good. I know we wanted to talk about ancestral nutrition a little bit. So, this is my approach to nutrition and healing, and it's a common one. A lot of it is based off of Weston A. Price's practices. So, if you don't know of him already, Weston A. Price was a dentist, and in the 1930s, he traveled around the world and he found these populations that were still isolated from the modern world, and oftentimes there was some kind of geological barrier that prevented them from trading and acquiring flours and sugars and modern, more refined foods. So they were still eating the way their ancestors had for a very long time. So he went to the Swiss Alps, he went to the Polynesian Islands, he went up into the Arctic, he looked at different Native Americans, he looked at a lot of different populations, and he would find these ones that were still eating the way their ancestors had. Like I said, a lot of times there was some kind of physical barrier that actually prevented them from having modern foods. So he would look at that population and then he would go a little distance. So it was a population pretty close that did have access to the trade and had incorporated the refined flours and sugars and coffees and candies and these newer foods, and you would look at the difference in their health. So it is a fascinating book. I highly recommend. His book is Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, and it's by Weston A. Price. So a lot of the whole ancestral nutrition movement now, or you could hear it called Wise Traditions Diet, Nourishing Traditions Diet, Weston A. Price style diet. There's a lot of different names, but pretty much the
Hey,
same thing. Did you have something you wanted to add?
no, I'm just taking notes because what you're saying speaks a lot to the book I shared with you that I read,
Uh-huh.
the Right for Your Blood Type.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
It is looks at what is your ancestral background,
Uh-huh.
and it suggests. I'll just say this one thing is like for as a very bold example, African people apparently have some degree of difficulty in consuming dairy products.
Oh,
Now, why is you know, um, and it just makes some sense to me that if we were to eat the things that, say, for my sake, Dutch, Proto-German ancestry, Scottish, my dad would say, Scottish! Yeah, what are
uh-huh.
you talking about? That's your mum's side. What effect would that have if we were to consume dandelion, um, the types of things that were around your generation, and what might that be?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a great point. So, eating like your specific ancestors could definitely have a little extra benefits, especially some people tolerate dairy more than others. Most people, if you heal your gut and you get good quality raw dairy, you're gonna tolerate it, but there's still some people that will struggle with it and won't be able to. So that's a good example. Some people can tolerate dairy more based on their ancestry and their ability to continue to create lactase, the enzyme that breaks lactose down into adulthood and beyond, just when you're breastfeeding as a child. But with the ancestral nutrition, it's less about your specific ancestry and looking more at the general practices and what is the overarching kind of similarities between these people that led to their good health. So some of these are they ate a lot of animal foods, ate nose to tail animal foods. When Weston A. Price was doing this and looking around the world, he noted in his book that he was actually surprised to find there was no people that he found that didn't eat any meat. Everybody ate meat, and that contributed a lot to their health. They ate nose to tail, they ate organ meats, they ate the bone broth, they ate the bone marrow, they ate very seasonally, obviously, and they also properly prepared any kind of grains, legumes, nuts, or seeds that they had. So they would soak them or sprout them or ferment them to break them down and make them more digestible. This will also make them not cause leaky gut for you, not cause a bunch of digestive issues, and it'll make the nutrients, which there's not very many nutrients in grains or nuts or seeds or legumes, it's pretty minimal, but the few nutrients that are in there will be a little bit more bioavailable if you soak them ahead of time. Yeah, so that's a huge thing. They didn't eat seed oils, they didn't eat processed foods, and there's more specifics you can see, but raw dairy was huge for some of the population. Some of them ate a lot of seafood. Yeah, there's various different things, but liver was very highly praised. Raw butter was highly praised. Fish roe was very highly praised as very nutrient dense foods. These foods helped them to have better health. Their facial structure developed better. They had straighter teeth. They didn't get cavities. He was a dentist, so he was very interested in that. They had very, very low rates of cavities and they didn't get tuberculosis and they were more fertile and they had all these health benefits. And then the neighboring population that was the more modern ones, what he found was these new foods, the flour and the sugar and the preserved and candies, they displaced a lot of the traditional foods. So they ended up getting a lot of nutrient deficiencies, which led their faces to not form as symmetrically, their teeth to be not in line and more crooked. They got more cavities because they weren't getting enough fat soluble nutrients and they weren't getting enough minerals to build their teeth up and keep them mineralized and strong. So, anyway, looking at these different ways that people ate, we find these principles that we end up basing ancestral nutrition around. So, essentially, it is eating similar to how our ancestors did. It is not picking a specific group of people and copying them exactly. You can do that if you want, but you don't have to. That's not what it's about. It's more about taking the principles. So for me, I eat a lot of organ meats. I eat muscle meat. I eat a variety of cuts of meat. I eat bone broth regularly. Fermented foods were huge for them. Fermented foods. I have some seasonal fruits and veggies. I minimize nuts, seeds, legumes, and grains and prepare them properly when I have them. So just following these principles helps you to get a lot more nutrients in. And to tie it back to knee health and mobility and recovery, you need nutrients to repair things in your body. So you need nutrients to heal and seal leaky gut so you're not getting inflammation in your body anymore. You need nutrients to physically repair your joints. So we talked about collagen as being one that was really important, but there are more. You need nutrients to build everything in your body. And if you're short on nutrients, then your body's going to have to make a choice of where they're going to put nutrients. So if you're short on calcium, yeah, your bone's not going to get that calcium. Your heart's going to get it because your heart pumping is essential to you surviving. Your bones being strong is less important than your heart. So, if you're deficient in calcium, not only will the calcium you eat start to go to your heart or more important things, but your body can actually break down and take calcium out of your bones to give it to the areas of your body that need.
Yes.
So with healing, you really need to get your nutrients in. You need to be able to digest it and break it down and absorb it, have that healed and sealed leaky gut. And getting those nutrient dense foods in will give your body the building blocks to rebuild your joints and have them be stronger and healthier.
Right on. Yeah. I'm all for nutrient density.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on.
Another,
Do you,
oh yeah, I was
yeah,
just
go for it.
another huge thing with decreasing inflammation is getting rid of the seed oils too. Those are very, very inflammatory in your body. So, seed oils are going to be oils that were made from a seed. So, it could be cottonseed oil, canola oil, corn oil. Those are the three C's. And then there's three S's: sunflower oil, safflower oil, and soy oil. And then also vegetable oil, grapeseed oil, rice bran oil, any kind of oils made from seeds are very inflammatory. They're very high in omega-6, which is an inflammatory fat, and as opposed to omega-3, that's anti-inflammatory. We need both, but we need more omega, or we can't have too much omega-6. And just the
I
way,
appreciate that you highlighted that. I appreciate that you highlighted that because we're talking about and food groups that are in a large swathe of our people's food, and we don't need to be making them, overly. Because I appreciate that, omega-6 is something that I've been told that we need as well. But just drawing the line there that the best that we can to aim towards things that are nutrient dense and consist of um, yeah, of good value nutrition. It's going to put us in the right gear.
absolutely. Yeah, so the seed oils is kind of a big tangent, so there's a lot about it out there now, so I'll make it kind of quick.
Yeah, there is, but so you're definitely not the first in my world to have brought that up. There's a little bit of a war against that stuff. And just personally, I do wonder how much of that is actually just tied in with the possibility that the consumption of a lot of these, say, omega-6, it's less so, but these canolas, these different oils that are extracted, is actually a lot to do with the fact that a lot of the when we are consuming these things, it's because they're combined with the things they weren't meant to be combined with a little bit more. That actual product itself is consistent of many other things, which in isolation may be okay, but because of that particular combination, the synergy of those ingredients isn't speaking the same language. Put it in an interesting vernacular. It's like those things. It's now become bastardized. It is consumable. It has some nutrient value, but essentially, it's no longer an oil coming from nuts. It's not a pre-soaked nut. But thank you for highlighting that for everyone as a way to make the actual goodness in a nut more bioavailable is by soaking it and having it bring out its natural goodness that would have been more likely if you picked it off the tree. Yeah, it's been dried and sent to you folks. Let's try and potentiate that. And the way I do that is by soaking my stuff overnight in the fridge because we have fridges these days. That's great, isn't it? Soaking my cereal overnight. I've moved away from crap cereals, but still have oats and nuts soaked overnight, and that's just because I'm running away from that at this point, especially with regards to the price of food these days. And it's really a great way to potentiate those food groups.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
The seed
so
oil,
those seed oils are in these wacky places now.
yeah. With them too, it's an entirely different thing than if you took sunflowers and you crushed them up yourself and tried to get the oil out and you consumed it right away, yeah, that wouldn't be such a bad thing. But the way that they're doing it, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be that helpful of a thing, but it wouldn't be so harmful. If you were to, the way they do it now is they have a factory and it is really hard to get the oil out. There's not a ton of it. It is not like rendering animal fat where just tons of fat comes out and you've got a lot of it.
Just
Seed,
pours out.
seed.
Bless the animals, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Thank you for your
absolutely.
yes.
So with the seed oils now, it's a very disgusting process. Honestly, they use a lot of chemicals. They use bleach. They use a lot of chemicals to actually get the oils out. And a lot of times the oil that comes out, it's if you watch the videos, it's a disgusting sludge and it smells gross apparently. So they bleach it, they deodorize it to make it palatable. And
Pellet, friend, the pellet. See, folks, that's what we're talking about. Thank you, Kaylee. Yes, very good. That's the distinction, isn't it? The processing these things as opposed to the consumption of maybe the raw molecule, which is still housed in its original place to a certain degree.
yeah, when the fats are taken out of the seed, they don't have that same protective mechanism and matrix of things around it. And it's very susceptible to oxidation. And then the heat and the chemicals of the processing make it even more susceptible to oxidation. And essentially,
What are we even eating now?
yeah,
What are we even eating now? It's like a thing that was a thing. I mean,
uh-huh.
just as one example, a piece of meat is a piece of meat, but in 5 days, when you leave it on the table, it's no longer just a piece of meat. You're going to be contending with some other characters who've made their way to your food.
Uh-huh, absolutely. So essentially, just the seed oils are very inflammatory to your body because they oxidate easily. The structure of fat in them, polyunsaturated fat, is just more prone to the oxidation, and then the heat and the chemicals and the processing make it even more prone. When a free radical is created, it's basically a molecule without enough electrons and it's not happy about it. It goes around and creates a lot of damage in your body. So cutting the seed oils out is huge for decreasing inflammation.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. It's not very happy about it.
It's
You
not.
leave it where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a huge
Okay.
component of the nutritional side.
Right. Yeah. I got a question for you, Kaylee. And sorry everyone if my screen flips when I do this.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for the question I've got here for Kaylee. Uh, would you tell us a hack for navigating metabolic flexibility, which is a word that I've heard, you know, when like we're a busy mum or we're a busy truck driver or something, we're not always going to have access to this stuff. Is there something that you've got in mind that can help us navigate that metabolic, that sort of that middle ground where we don't have access to all that stuff? And further to that question is like, um, would that hack be um, specifically water or specifically probiotics or is there anything that you can think of for navigating that space?
Yeah, so real quick, just to specify what you're saying, by metabolic flexibility, do you mean the ability to burn fat or carbs for fuel and to alternate between the two? Is that what you're talking about?
That's a really, really, really good analogy. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
It is.
like it's the ability to consume a range of things and not have so many inflammatory responses from that. Whether that is now I sleep really terribly or I'm unable to move properly, um, and, and even just not knowing the difference. Just quickly, that some people have drawn a distinction between the consumption of meats and the consumption of starches. Sorry, potatoes, sweet potatoes. These things, while they are so delicious, bangers and mash, they seem to have. Please inform me if you feel I'm incorrect, Kaylee. Is that the biological breakdown of these two distinct groups is a different acidic pH. So the pH scale runs from this to that. And if we're burning uh, protein, the pH is over here. But if we're burning potatoes, the pH is more over to this end. So when we're consuming them both at the same time, we're not getting an adequate breakdown of the two of those things. We're actually getting just barely getting it through, and it's delicious, but probably not burning the food into efficient fuel.
pH is really interesting. So where I see the most important emphasis on pH is in your stomach acid. So when you're digesting food, pretty much no matter what food it is, once it gets to your stomach is going, well, yes, no matter what food it is, your stomach is going to release stomach acid. And that usually will bring the contents of your stomach in a healthy individual between the 1 and 3 on the pH scale. So that's very, very acidic. So what you eat is not going to have the largest effect on the acidity. It's going to be, if you're healthy, in that 1 to 3 range. It's more around 1 to 2 while you're eating. 3 is actually more in between meals. But anyway, so your food is going to get so much acid in the stomach, and it's all going to mix around, and there's pepsin and these different digestive enzymes working at breaking your food down. And then after your stomach, it's slowly going to be released into your small intestine, and this molecule called bicarbonate ion is going to be released right there. And the job of that is to neutralize the food and stomach acid so that it doesn't burn your intestines, because your stomach wall is very
Right.
special and capable of handling the acidity. Your small intestine is not. So it has to be neutralized. So when it comes to talking about pH, my personal opinion is that the pH of the food doesn't matter that much because it's going to be blasted with a ton of stomach acid and then a ton of bicarbonate ion. So it's not going to have a massive impact on the pH in your digestive system. And that's not going to have really an impact on the pH in your body either. A lot of people will talk about like alkaline being more healing, but because there's so much acid and then so much of the bicarbonate ion, the pH isn't really that different at that point. And the problem
Sure.
with pH is more when you have too alkaline, so not acidic enough of a stomach. If you have not enough stomach acid, you're not going to break your food down thoroughly enough. And then you're not going to be able to get all the nutrients out of it. It can lead to acid reflux. It can lead to a lot of issues. So the actual pH with the different foods, I don't find as important. Weston A. Price looked at that too. He looked at that and noted about it in his book. He looked at the different ancestral populations and the acidity of the foods that they were eating and didn't really find any kind of correlation there. It varied a lot. So
Yeah.
that's my personal opinion on that one. I don't think it matters too much.
Oh, come on. No, I agree wholeheartedly, and that makes a lot of sense. I do just wonder about them as individuals when they're put together.
Oh,
When we're combining, say, sausages and potatoes and stuff like that. But let's just leave that for another episode if it's that way inclined. But I'm just pulling stuff out of the ether here. But I was just asking you if there was a particular single hack that can help people navigate that middle ground between um, doing things right and eating nonsense on the road. Is it more
okay.
and everyone's an individual. Let's look at that as well. But would you posit that it might be more the consumption of water, clean water, or that it might be something else, or that it might be the consumption of probiotic foods to sure everyone's somewhat different. But is there something that stood out for you?
Yeah, so are you asking like finding that balance between doing the like perfect ideal healthy thing and then kind of life and making it practical? Is that what you're asking?
I'm really not trying to guide your folks into breaking the rules. I honestly,
Well,
because I put it like this: if I go out on a date, or if I, you know, am hanging out with friends and they bring me some food like a garlic bread, and it smells absolutely gorgeous. Um, I'm that guy who says no. I'm that guy oftentimes who says no, thank you. My mum offers me stuff that sometimes when I visit her, and I want to have nothing to do with cakes from how they've made me feel relative to the changes that I've made, which are similar to you in consumption of meat, vegetables, and fruit. But I guess what I'm sort of considering there is that when we do have the choice to, and we make the choice to do something a little bit off to the side of nutrient density, is there something that's stood out for you that has really backed people up so they can get away with more?
oh,
I'm trying to help my members of my family here. It's like, like, is it like maybe really simple, like the consumption of bone broths that you can seem to buy now from all these health stores? Or is it like a full form of probiotic or consumption of water? What are you noticing?
okay.
I'm thinking,
So there's no one cheat food or pill that's gonna make you be
thank
a
you. I expected that answer.
but
Yeah, there's no way around it. You people just eat properly.
I do have a few tips though. So first would be preparing ahead of time is going to be helpful. I used to make food ahead of time to bring to work or school. I worked in a restaurant, and the vast majority of the time I would bring my own food. So I would, after everyone else got to eat, I'd sit down and have my chicken salad. And so that can help a lot. So just first off, planning ahead of time, even if you know a place that's near you that's really healthy. I have a client that I swear is the queen of finding healthy like alternatives. She would send me like an almond butter or a granola or a place she went out to eat or a soup that was just insanely healthy. So they do have options out there. It depends what's near you, what your options are, but sometimes you can find something that's really healthy. Now, the second best, if you are in a situation where you didn't prepare properly, didn't think ahead, or you're still getting in the groove of it, that happens, is to just do the best with what's available to you. So if you're in a less than ideal situation, don't go buy fries. They're deep fried in a bunch of seed oils that have been reheated over and over again. That's going to be like the worst thing you can do. Even if you can just get like a better quality burger, or if you can go to a grocery store, that can be really helpful because sometimes you could get maybe a better sandwich if you're still eating gluten, or you could get some sushi, or there's oftentimes a little healthier options. So just kind of do the best with what's available to you. if you made it that way. You can eat out sometimes, I eat out every once in a while. It's honestly not something I do often at all. But when you do, you can kind of pick the best thing. So avoid fried foods. Try to get some meat. That's probably the best. If you're worried about the quality, go for beef or ruminant animal. They are better at getting rid of toxins and not having them still in the meat. So that's going to be good. Yeah, salads can be a good option.
Please explain that just quickly, because people need to understand that that ruminant animals distinction. Why is it that those particular animals have a, what would you say, a better bioavailability or just a better ability to process their toxins, so that when we consume their flesh, God bless them, that that they do not confer upon us the negative aspects of their treatment, say whether it Roundup or something.
Yeah, so that will store a little bit more in chicken and poultry and foods like that, where ruminant animals, animals that have four stomachs, like cows, are just better at getting rid of those toxins and not storing them as much. I'm not saying the quality doesn't matter. The better quality you get, the better it is for your health. But if you can't get the optimal, then a ruminant is going to expose you to less toxins than chicken or poultry.
And what are those animals, ruminants?
Anyone with four stomachs. So, cow is one. I don't know them all off the top of my head, but I'm sure you could find a list real
Oh,
quick.
okay, sorry. Yep. Okay, so cow, yeah, cool. Yeah, that's a good place to start. They're very common too.
Also, to piggyback off your question, the healthier gut microbiome you have, and just the healthier you are in general, the more flexibility you will have. So, while I said there's no cheat food that's going to make whatever you eat okay. At the same time, if you take care of your health and you have a really healthy gut microbiome, you have really healthy digestion, you do have more wiggle room. I mentioned gluten can cause leaky gut. Well, I eat it now because I don't have leaky gut and I healed and I have a really healthy gut. So I'll make sourdough bread. So I'm properly preparing it. And I can have that sometimes. I can, go over to someone's house and not be all weird and ask if they're using seed oils. You can just kind of eat what they prepared for me and not, make a big deal out of it or anything. So you
Uh,
flexibility,
Thank you.
the healthier you are, the more flexibility you get. But I just work with a lot of people that are so chronically ill and have been for years that you just have to
Mm,
be more diligent. And I think something that can help if you're in that situation, if you've got a really bad autoimmune disease, you've got a like rheumatoid arthritis, or if you've got Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, if you've got something like that, that is not the time for moderation. That is not the time for I deserve a
no,
little bread.
break the rule.
You have to want it and you have to be willing to be really disciplined if that's your situation. Anything is better than nothing. So it's also not good to have the all or nothing if you're going to choose nothing mentality. Anything is better than doing nothing. But at the same time, if you are in that place, you really do have to be disciplined with these things to see the changes. And if you are, you'll see the changes so much faster and you'll get to a place where you have more flexibility. It's not forever. You can't go back and then eat like crap again, but you will get that more flexibility. So if you have a favorite cake or something that might not be the healthiest in the world and you want to have it once or twice a year, that's not the end of the world. Your body is resilient. It can handle some stuff.
Yeah. Well, seeing you're the gut magician. You're the expert on this. I'd like to ask you two questions that are very practical.
Uh-huh.
So with regards to our gut, there's two conditions that are going to be something that people are going to face, and that it's just going to be a potential problem. And it's one, diarrhea,
Oh, okay.
and two, constipation.
Mhm.
Obviously, two extremes.
Mhm.
So help us out, Kaylee. What are just one thing for each of them, so everyone can kind of walk away and go, all right, next time this happens, I'm going to do this, what Kaylee said, and
Well,
see how that works.
there's one right off the bat that helps both fermented foods. Fixing your gut microbiome is huge for both constipation and diarrhea. It's a very, very big root cause for both of them. If you're experiencing looser stools or diarrhea, opt for the fermented dairy. That's going to help you a little bit more. And if you're experiencing constipation, opt for the fermented veggies. That's going to help you a little more. You can have both, but if you're going to pick one, go with that, the dairy for
Interesting.
and
Fermentation for diarrhea.
what was that?
Fermentation for diarrhea.
Yes.
Fermented this.
And then the fermented veggies for constipation. I guess I'll throw another one in there though. So constipation, I talk about a ton. I dealt with it for 10 years. I've helped a ton of people overcome it. A lot of people I work with start with constipation. So one very underlooked cause that was one of the causes for me that's very important is giving yourself an opportunity to go. So many people rush out the door in the morning. They eat their breakfast and then leave for work right away. They're very stressed that they don't, for lack of better terms, schedule it in. You need to have a chunk of
Yeah. Yeah.
morning. Your body's used to being able to go and that you are relaxed in that time. Now, if you've been constipated for a while, you can have a bad tendency to fixate on it during that time and go, oh my God, I have to have a bowel movement right now. It's got to happen. And just be like, oh my God, it's got to get out. Don't do that. This is a time to have.
You feedback loop there, right? Like, yeah. One thing that's really helped me, guys, with this, and for the construction people out there who build toilets, they're gonna hate me for this, and some but like squatting on the toilet,
Oh,
like
yeah.
just have. We're talking about some stuff here that might be embarrassing for a lot of people, and it is for me a little bit because I don't specialize in it. But like the other day, I went to the toilet and nothing much was happening, and I knew what you'd said, and I knew anecdotally from my past awareness, squatting on the toilets really helped. And ladies and gentlemen, let's just say it was a good day after I stood up on the loo. Now, obviously, when we do that, we want to be a little bit safe and hold on to the things around us, and maybe have good knees to start with. That can really help.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's huge. That aligns your intestines the way that you would if you were gonna go if you were gonna go
Thank
number two
you.
out in a while,
Yeah,
squat down.
right.
So yes, so
Mm,
that's very helpful as well. And I could go on for an hour or two about constipation or diarrhea, so I'll kind of leave it there. I have a lot
yes.
more content about that too.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered a lot of things, and I think we're over an hour now, so maybe we could kind of give some closing thoughts. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What would be your biggest advice or something you want to leave people with when it comes to healing knees and improving mobility?
Oh, okay. A pain-free approach. Um, when we're looking to restore even or just uh, improve the connective tissue, which can be done. Thank you, folks. Wasn't always known. A pain-free approach is very important because it's much easier to rebuild muscle than it is to rebuild connective tissue. So the joint tissue. Yeah, you know, Kaylee. So, so having a pain-free approach because your alignment might be a little bit off one day, but the one thing that's going to tell you if you're in alignment or not is does this hurt? And it is the very same principle that has really guided um, my uh, success in building some degree of strength without going into this crazy world of um, trying to be big and muscly looking, or I need to do what this person on the screen is telling me to fix my knees,
Mhm.
me included, everyone. If it doesn't, if you're looking to improve your knees and your mobility, let's please have a pain-free approach
Mhm.
and just go with it and breathe. Thank you. The last thing will be breathing.
Mhm.
So to me is a very yoga response approach, and that's probably why yoga has been advocated, has become a very popular idea, is that it should be pain-free.
Mhm. Absolutely.
You can push the lines a little bit to build strength. I
Yeah.
had to add that in there to add strength. We want to be. working against resistance, like with anything thing in life. Thank you. Whether it's socially, relationally, you do have to go into those difficult areas. But having a pain-free approach with regards to restoring connective tissue is a really, really good place to start.
Absolutely. I would say I will I'll give my advice on the nutritional side for healing injuries. I would say the biggest takeaway would be to consume a lot of collagen rich foods because if you have any degree of leaky gut, that will help heal it on that side. And also, when you have leaky gut, a lot of toxins can store in your body's connective tissue. So if you have toxins coming in your body and in your bloodstream, they can actually go and store in your connective tissue. Heavy metals love to do this. So giving your body more collagen will also help you to get rid of that old toxin filled collagen that can cause a lot of pain and autoimmune diseases and arthritis and things like that and replace it with a healthy new collagen and connective tissue. So I'd say drink your bone broth, make it yourself if you can. That's going to be better, or meat stock. And have other collagen rich foods like bone marrow, bone and skin on poultry, tough cuts of meat that have been cooked slow for a long time, foods like that. And these are a million times better than collagen powders. Eat real food. It's going to be better for you than supplements. There can be some that are okay, but it's just real food is always better. So I would eat real food and eat lots of collagen. And then I really would cut the seed oils out and remember that it gets easier the more you do it. And if you're wondering what to replace it with, just use butter or lard or tallow. A healthy animal fat is ideal. If you're still coming around to that and not quite comfortable with it yet, coconut oil can be really good. Avocado oil can be okay, but it just depends. Some companies lie and they sell you seed oils and it says avocado
Well,
oil.
I wanted to pop up about there is that obviously we've got a very there's an established contingent of people who do not consume meat. And when I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on, avocado. I mean, avocado oil. Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying like, what's the real food that that we can eat? That's all awesome. I'm imagining that avocado would fall into a a say vegetarian approach, would it not, to improving like the healthy fats, which wouldn't it? Would just make sense to me.
Yeah,
Assist with
that for
joint. It does make sense. It's just like, once you start doing this with a piece of avocado, it's a little bit oily, you
uh-huh.
know. To break it to a real simple place, like you were saying, it's like sometimes you just eat the thing that feels the constitution might make its way to the place where it's needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It has a lot of fat in it, so avocado is going to be it is a fine thing to eat if you like them. Go for it. There's tons of them where I am.
Get
Um,
your avocados, you vegetarians.
what was that?
Get your avocados, you vegetarians.
Uh-huh. But yeah, so that's would be my kind of sum up is get collagen in and cut out the seed oils, and that will do wonders for your health. Yeah. Do you want
Cool.
where people can find you, Kyle? I'll link it down below, but do you have some favorite
Yeah,
things?
let's for them. Let's just including in the show notes or in the whatever place like that, any links that and I'll just highlight what those links are. There's a link there for some uh, a video, a very simple video on how you can improve your knees. It's under it's a 7 minute, 5 minute video actually. There's another one there now to improve your knee conditions from now on. So it's really super easy. Plus, there's a link in there uh, on how to on the YouTube on how to get in touch with me if you're wanting to find out those extra little stretches which can turbocharge and the extra movements which can probably take you to a place where you didn't think you could ever go with regards to mobility. Because once we've lost it for a while, we think we're just getting old.
Mhm.
But apply the methods that have gone absolutely viral on the internet to, um, uh, I would say, your average person, including those with injuries, that we can improve not only our mobility but also how those joints feel and thus our mobility in general.
Mhm. Awesome, awesome. And I think you're gonna post it on yours too, so you're gonna have some links for mine. Is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. I have Kaylee's links there, everyone, for any of the things you might want to look into, whether it's her recipes, um, which look amazing. And one day, Kaylee, I'm gonna message you and go, look, because I absolutely love the idea of cooking, slow cooking things. So you guys can access her assistance and her material and her really cool videos that go into some of the stuff in more specifics for those areas you might be considering about inflammation and gut health as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Thank you guys for watching. Thanks, Kyle, for doing this with me, and hope you guys got a lot out of it.
Cheers, everyone. Have a good day.